let's remind ourselves, our government works on people not agreeing with each other, so that nothing really does get done that could be harmful. And then there's an assumption, I guess, that if we wanted something that was generally good, we would all come together. Well, I don't know if that happens as much as we would like it to, but
It's a
in
beautiful,
general,
beautiful delusion, ain't it?
it's only a delusion. Okay. So I know that everyone, especially now, because if you haven't noticed, and if you're in Virginia, you've already noticed because we're a swing state, but the elections in America have ramped up. Like every 4 years, that fourth year when we get the elections going for the federal government, for our president, it becomes overwhelming. Every year, people get burned out and tired of the same rhetoric. And the same rhetoric is go vote or vote for the lesser of two evils, all this stuff. Okay. It's hard to say, but one of our biggest powers is to vote. And what I'm trying to remind everybody is that power isn't necessarily the power to vote for your president. That power to vote does the most good if you're voting in local and state elections, because the states are the ones that put pressure on our federal government.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to Saturday Evenings Posted Mostly presents some general chaos. Now, let me see if I've got the sound working right. Say something, y'all. Say hi. We're here with the ASOC Prod Cat and our civics teacher, Trilhala. Try that again. Now I think we've got it.
Hello.
Something.
All right. I think that's... Yes. I think the sound is working now. So, we are here to discuss state-level civics today. Which, let's start with a general sort of outline of the shape of Virginia state politics, shall we? Can you give us, Trilhala, can you give us some idea of the different branches of the Virginia state government?
The state government's or rather the federal government's kind of a mimic of Virginia state government, because a lot of what our modern government took into the Constitution was from Virginia and a lot of the colonies. So Virginia has all three. They have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branch. Virginia's legislative branch is bicameral, like the federal government. It has the General Assembly, which is the equivalent of the Congress. And that General Assembly is divided into two houses. One is the House of Delegates, and the other one is the Virginia Senate. The House of Delegates has 100 members, and the Virginia Senate has 40.
And the House of Delegates is sort of equivalent to the
House of Representatives.
Thank you. Yes, the House of Representatives.
Mm-hmm. And then obviously the Virginia Senate is the equivalent of the U.S. Senate.
Right. And laws getting made move in a similar way? Either house can propose them.
Yeah, I mean, the lawmaking process for Virginia is almost exactly the same as the United States government, except that it ultimately goes to the governor in the end, obviously, instead of the president. And the governor has the ability of line item vetoes, which the president does not have.
Line item vetoes being the ability to take any line in a bill and veto that line.
Correct. So it's a specific type of veto where he approves of most of a bill, but he can cross out um, parts that he doesn't like, and like any other veto, in order to have that stopped, 2/3 of the General Assembly have to vote against it to
Okay.
override his veto.
Supermajority to override veto.
Correct.
How okay, there are 100 you said 100
Delegates
delegates
and 40 senators.
and 40 senators. How many districts are there? How many delegates per district do we get?
Well, Virginia is divided into like over 90 counties, not to mention like a handful of independent cities and towns, and that's where your delegates come from.
Okay.
And senators are district level, which means like if you look, you can find a district map of Virginia, and Virginia will be divided so certain counties are represented by certain senators. And you can go on to, you can look for this online to find out who your delegates are and who your senators are.
Okay. And the type of stuff that the General Assembly and the governor tackle are these local laws. These local sort of ordinances and laws that apply to all of Virginia, right?
Well, so state level government is actually quite large because we have a Virginia Constitution. And the thing that people have to remember about the United States is that states actually hold quite a bit of power over what can happen in the state, um, with restrictions from like the 14th Amendment and some of the restrictions that come with um, that the Constitution is the supreme power, meaning the federal government's the supreme power. But for the most part, the states have a lot of decisions over things in their own state. I mean, think of marriage laws, driver's licenses, things like now Roe v. Wade being overturned, abortions, and licensure for anything, including teachers and medical students. So they actually have quite a bit of laws and powers. Now, a lot of that's spent on budget. So if you don't know, the Virginia House, the Virginia General Assembly only meets between 30 to 60 days every year. Now, if it's an odd year, they'll meet for 30 days. If it's an even year, they will meet for 60 days. And it might be extended by the governor if they have not come to agreements on certain laws and the budget. But for
In
the most part,
what are called
they're
special sessions, right?
Yeah, special sessions. But for the most part, they're done by April. And by July is when all of our laws go into effect. So they're not full time like our federal government is. So they spend every 2 years they have to create a budget because our budget is biennial,
Okay.
and they spend that time that they're in there, a lot of it on budgets, as well as some other bills that come through. But budgets are a big deal in
Okay.
state government.
And
You know,
that's what mainly occupies their time and their mind. Money, money, money.
yeah. Well, I mean, because if you think about it, they have to figure out how much they're going to be spending on things like police and schools and roads and infrastructure. You know, the things that everybody needs in a state, and that doesn't get done if they don't pass a spending bill. So,
That is as well as state sponsored services and things like fire, rescue, police.
yeah, because those things have to now, because the state government, a state is very large and it's a lot of people. A lot of the state power is actually given to local governments. Like if
Okay.
you think about schools, right? Every county has its own school system. Every city, independent city, has its own school system. And what the state does is they have a Department of Education, the VDOE, and Virginia decides how much money they're going to give to each locality. And
Okay.
then those localities have their own councils, or their own board of supervisors if they're a county. It's a council if it's a city. They have their own legislative groups that then take that money and decide what they're going to do with that money. So Virginia is like an upper level part of your quote unquote local government, because local government I'm putting here as anything that deals directly with the people. But your actual local government is sponsored by the state. They can't do anything with the state. They don't actually exist without the state constitution giving them powers, which it does.
Okay.
So local governments are actually part of the state. They're given powers by the state because in the constitution, really, the only powers are really given to the federal government and the state governments. And then the state governments have the power to create local governments.
Okay.
So a lot of what Virginia does budgetary wise is how much are we going to give our local governments for, schools and all this stuff.
Okay. And
Um, Now, executive wise, the head of the executive branch in Virginia is the governor, who is currently, if my brain would work.
Ralph Northam.
No, it's not Northam.
Oh no, it's Northam was
Um,
last
yeah,
governor.
Northam was last.
Youngkin,
Some
Glenn Youngkin.
Youngkin. That's it. Is the Republican Glenn Youngkin?
Yes, I want it to be Northam again, but you can't run for governor twice in a row.
Correct. You can only run twice, like a president. You cannot run twice in a row. If you run once, you have to take a 4-year break and then run again. As far as I know, we are the only state that does that, and it is very, very restrictive. And it has caused where it has only happened once since the Civil War that a governor has had two stays as a governor because of that. And part of the reason is that people forget about you when you're out of the governorship, and the chances of being remembered, and you would have to run a whole campaign just to remind people that you once done this.
Although,
Um,
although, didn't Tim Kaine try it? Hasn't Tim Kaine?
and he didn't succeed.
Okay.
So it's very difficult. Now that's on purpose. If we go back to what I said earlier, the last time we talked, uh, the people that existed back in the 1700s in our colonies did not like power structures to actually exist. They tried to disrupt them as much as possible, especially when it came to whoever was in the executive or leadership positions, because they had been so turned off by the power structure of England.
The idea of a
Um,
king really did not sit
yes,
well.
no, it did not. And they tried to put as much power as they could into those that represented the people. I mean, back then it was the landowning men, but still the people, which is your legislative branches, because your legislative branches are um, are voted on by their people, and they are supposed to live in the area that they represent, so they should know what
Constituents.
their constituents need and want at that time. So the governor in Virginia is very limited in that way. So the chances of Youngkin getting another go at being governor is unlikely, and it will definitely not be the next 4 years. So in a couple of years when he's gone, he will not be coming back. That's just probability wise in Virginia government.
How often
He
is the governor voted on? How often
4
is
years,
4 years? It's a four
every four
year
years.
it's a 4 year term,
Yes,
and it is offset from
the
presidential.
presidency, correct. So
Is
the
it?
next time we vote for the governor, it'll be 2 years from this presidential election.
But it will be a midterm election.
It will be, yes.
Now,
So that's why every 2 years you need to vote.
well,
We go through these 4 year voting cycles. Now every year there's a chance of there being something, but in Virginia, and a lot of times it comes out to every 2 years, because unless something weird's happened, it's generally every 2 years for the state level. Now for the local level, it can be different because it depends on how often there are elections for, say, things like um, school board, and for your board of supervisors or your city council if you live in a city. And that's stuff you need to keep an eye on, because those people are the closest to you and they're going to have the most direct impact on your livelihoods.
right. They're the ones who are going to make the decisions that affect you the most.
Yes, I know that lately we've had a lot of disruption in our lives because of the federal government. But you have to remember that has been work that has been ongoing for probably 50 years for it to have culminated into this, what has become our life right now. In order to get anything done at a federal level, it has to be worked on for decades for anything to have a direct impact on people. And that has been the goal of our founding fathers since they wrote the Constitution. Now, I don't know if I agree with that, because that means it's harder to make change work. And it has left the Constitution very vague. But for the most part, the things that are going to impact you the hardest are going to be state level and local level events and elections. Because if your states, just take abortion for example, if your state does not support abortion, that's going to directly impact that state. Like it's already doing it now in places like Alabama in Florida and Louisiana, where it's not only harming women, it's causing a large event happening in the um, healthcare system where there are interns that are not coming and interning at southern hospitals, and those hospitals are losing their OBGYNs at a very fast rate. And so something like that has a much larger impact than anything that a federal government could do, because it takes a lot longer. But for a state government, especially without people paying attention and voting, it can be a lot easier for them to push through um, legislation that could both benefit and harm you. I mean, we're talking taxes, we're talking, um, healthcare and safety, um,
Everything that isn't directly guaranteed by
by the Constitution.
by the federal constitution.
Correct. Correct.
Uh,
And so a lot of the stuff that's given to states, including voting rights, including,
and the states also control the elections, election
well,
boards, election, how the
correct.
elections are run is
That
left
is
to.
actually something that is given to the states. That is one of the things they wanted, was that the government cannot control, the federal government could not control elections, because there is that worry that then they would be able to control the outcomes. So if you put it into the hands of the states, they are much more likely to not agree on anything. I mean, because let's remind ourselves, our government works on people not agreeing with each other, so that nothing really does get done that could be harmful. And then there's an assumption, I guess, that if we wanted something that was generally good, we would all come together. Well, I don't know if that happens as much as we would like it to, but
It's a
in
beautiful,
general,
beautiful delusion, ain't it?
uh, it's only a delusion. Okay. So I know that everyone, especially now, because if you haven't noticed, and if you're in Virginia, you've already noticed, because we're a swing state, but the elections in America have ramped up. Like every 4 years, that fourth year, when we get the elections going for the federal government, for our president, it becomes overwhelming. Every year, people get burned out and tired of the same rhetoric. And the same rhetoric is go vote, or vote for the lesser of two evils, all the stuff. Okay. It's it's hard to say, but one of our biggest powers is to vote. And what I'm trying to remind everybody is that power isn't necessarily the power to vote for your president. That power to vote does the most good if you're voting in local and state elections, because the states are the ones that put pressure on our federal government. If you can turn your state into what you want it to be, that state has a lot of power to pressure the federal government. That's the way it has been set up since the get-go. States are the check to the federal government. They are supposed to be the people, the people's government, and ultimately are the ones that are supposed to keep the federal government from getting too powerful.
And
So,
this is how
yeah.
you can end up with a state that votes blue on, on federal level and red on local level. This is how you
I mean,
can.
a lot of that has unfortunately to do with gerrymandering, but if you look at Texas, by the numbers, Texas should be blue. Okay, by the numbers of people, Texas should be blue. A lot of Texas's cities are blue. Okay, if you look at the map of America, and you were to color America in blue and red,
Per
initially you would see a ton of red.
per county or
But what
per?
just yeah, per county,
Okay.
you would see a ton of red. But what I want to remind you is most of those places where that red is just land, and land doesn't vote. You're talking about places that have like a one person per square mile, like Wyoming.
Doesn't
You're talking
vote
about,
yet.
well, okay, it's not supposed to vote. It's only supposed to be people. So what I'm saying is that most rural land votes red.
Right.
Most cities vote blue. Between gerrymandering in Texas and people not voting, Texas maintains its redness.
Okay.
Whether you are Democrat or Republican, your responsibility to vote at a local and state level will make the biggest difference in the country overall. Your state and the expectations you put on your state can pressure the federal government into doing what you want to do. The state has a lot more power than an individual does.
And
And if you create a state legislature that is doing the things you want it to do, which is a lot easier to get people in a state legislature that are more like you than it is at a federal level. Because let's just face it, most people to make it to the federal level have to make a lot of money.
yes.
The state, that's not true. You can find people at a state level and a local level that are just like you and support them and get them into that position at a legislative level. And if you have them in the legislature, they're the ones that are making and passing the laws. Now, you still have to get past your governor. So, your governor elections are very important because governors have the same power as the president to veto. So if you put through a legislation that you really want and you still have a governor that is against your legislature, that legislature is going to be constantly fighting that governor.
Even
And
if
that
you
governor is going to be
have a
spending a lot of time to veto.
even if you have a lot, even if you have 2/3 on the legislature, a
Correct.
2/3
Correct.
majority.
Because that is a check that the executive has is vetoing.
We
So
have. Oh, I was about to say
no,
we
go
have
ahead.
an ad incoming in 2 minutes, but it's been snoozed. So,
Uh, okay. Um, so
pardon me.
it, it's it's something that I want people to understand is that that your state has a lot of power, and if you take that into account and you vote every year in your local elections and every year in your state elections, every year that there is a vote, and you find out about these people, you know who these people are, and you vote for them. The federal level, yes, of course it's important, but everybody already knows about that. Everybody already knows about the president and they've given up. You should not be giving up on a local level. It does not take a lot for you to change because a lot of people are not voting for it.
Also, on a
And
local level, you have more. You have the ability to access your representative more easily. There's
and put pressure on them
right, like
because at a federal level, they'll just unplug the phones and stop taking your mail and you won't get to them. But that's kind of hard to do at a local level. You live with these people. You can go to their house. You can go to their office. You can call them. You can email them. You can stand outside and bother them. That's kind of the problem with being a person in power, is that you have to kind of give over to some of these things.
Mm.
And at a governor level, he gets more protection against that. But at a legislative level, those people are your neighbors. You could easily go and find out where you can go and talk to them. You can gather a group of people to put pressure on them. They might have a business, because a lot of these people are only part time because it does not pay well.
Now,
These people have businesses you can boycott.
I want to take a moment to address Retro Future Now's statements. This is, hey, we're just covering Virginia right now. So
Hmm.
it may be different in Utah. I'm sure it's different in Utah.
So it's different, but the structure is actually very similar.
Now,
They might call it something different, but there's always a governor and there's always a legislative body.
right. Now, also in Utah, things are very definitely
Conservative.
well, I was going to say very definitely controlled by the Mormon Church.
Well, true, but that's a lot of that has to do with numbers. And
Right.
I do
Right.
commiserate with people who are living in places that are very different from their personal moral code, because when certain states have a large majority of a certain type of people, it is kind of hard to fight against that,
Yes.
because it is all about majority wins, right? um Now, here's the thing, and this isn't going to work for everyone, because people are poor and people can't move and people can't leave, as we've
And
learned.
people don't necessarily have the ability to take the time and energy to put pressure on their local
True,
legislature.
true. And that here's the thing. If you can't do it, it's about survival. You do what you need to do to stay alive.
Right.
Look, I know that everybody tells you to do something, right? There is a there is a breaking point for everybody. At some point, you will put energy into it, because you cannot exist or survive without that. But I know how it is, living paycheck to paycheck, and putting every little dollar you have away for savings just in case something goes wrong. I don't have time, although first year of teaching, maybe I will. Maybe I'll be able to have time to go on protests, or to go, you know, contact my representatives during the summer, and that wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
We
Um, you
we
do what you have time to do.
we have an ad break coming up in about 2.5 minutes.
Okay.
Also, I don't know if you can see chat, Trollhalla. I don't know if
Mhm.
you're lurking and can see chat. Retro is Retro has some very emphatic points, and would like to hear your response to them. Also, what was the other thing? What's the thing he was? I was gonna say something else, but I lost track of what it was. But yeah, Retro has some. I mean, he's got some points here.
Hmm.
We could do well. It's 1.5 minutes. Let's start with. What was that? Something. The stripe. Just because your state has power doesn't mean the troops from your state will ever agree with you. And that's that sort of like what it's like to be the minority in a state trying to get your voice heard.
Yes.
And that I to that I would also
Okay.
counter, you know, these people where the pressure on a lot of them can come from is from church. I hate to say it, but those of us who are outside of the church structures of our state are at a disadvantage to putting pressure on our state legislatures. Also, Retro says plenty of local elections have been won for nothing to happen whatsoever. And that is true, but I think that that's because of a lack of engagement. You know,
I I do agree that there is a major lack of engagement, and
we are
that's kind
in
of
we are in commercial. We'll come back with the engagement. Um,
yeah when it's over.
yeah, Kat, can you give me a hand with getting Retro's points out?
If you want, I can do a screen grab and stick them in the Discord chat for Trahala to read.
All right, that would work. Um,
Let's see.
yeah.
Let's see.
Now, yeah, I think addressing the church structure, being out of the church structure, meaning people have a lack of power there, is something we could address.
Okay. Give me a moment. I'll have that up.
Okay.
Bother.
We're back in 28, 27, 26, 25.
I love you.
Love you
You're
too.
terrible.
I know. I feel bad for the YouTube watchers who have to wait through the not seeing any ads, just watching us
They're
bumble
like,
around.
At least they get to hear us mumbling interesting things.
And we're back from ads. Now, we were going to address the church structures, being outside of church structures, social structures like that, and trying to make your voice heard.
um
But you also had something else you were saying there.
I'm okay, so there is a certain amount. I mean, I could fall into my usual, and I could commiserate with all the misery that we're going through, because trust me, I'm there. Like, there are plenty of civics teachers and government teachers in those schools that when we get together, we do nothing but moan and groan and scream about how difficult it is to change our system. There are times where, yes, I think that there's going to have to be something extreme to happen in order for anything to change. But I can't go there yet because I have kids and I have to hold out hope that I'm not going to have to go through some sort of civil war or some sort of major event in order to change, let's face it, the world. Everyone in this world is going through a kind of awareness that has been slowly kind of opening our eyes over the past few decades of we are all living in the same boat, where there are a small amount of people who are deciding how this world is going to work, and that we are nothing more than robots or products for those people. Living in America has a certain amount of dystopia for us who have become aware of that.
Cognizant
And
dissonance.
it is, very much so. But it's not just us. I will guarantee you, the entire world is going through the exact same thing. And the people who have known this has been going on, the poor people around the world who are the ones that have been used from the beginning, already knew about this. So join the club. It is a worldwide problem that was only made worse by things that started with the Industrial Revolution, the ideals of capitalism, imperialism, all these things. It's one big monster.
Yes.
However, we are here. We have a system. And until there is a requirement for us to destroy said system, which may have to be a valid excuse of something that we do in the future, we have to work within that system and or protest that system. In order to do that, it's not going to be fun. And it's not going to guarantee you any results.
This brings
There are
us
no
back
guarantees in
around
this world.
to engagement, which is where we were before the commercial break.
Yes. The engagement part is we as a society, in primaries, we only vote 20% of the time. Only 20% of the population votes in primaries. You didn't want Joe Biden to become the primary elector for president. You needed to go vote in the primaries. If you are a registered Democrat or independent, find your primaries, go vote in them for the person that you want to become president.
And this has
Same
actually
for
been
Republicans.
happening on the Republican side of things, because Hickey Haley has been getting a consistent 20% of the primary vote.
But even
Consistently,
Republicans don't
even
do it.
even after the
Well,
didn't.
yeah,
I think they might be
didn't.
now.
They might be, but it's too late now. It's too late, you guys. That we are where we are right now. The primary season's over. It's not going to make a difference now.
Day
And
late and a dollar short,
trying
Republicans once again.
trying to vote in against a somebody that the Democrats are supporting or the Republicans are supporting, very difficult. But it's never going to happen if you don't go to the primaries. It's just not. And they're betting on that. You don't understand. They're betting on you being lazy. Every single one of them, doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican, they are betting on you being lazy. They're betting on you having no clue of how this system works. I teach kids every day, and I try to burrow into their head to tell them, you will need this information when you go out into the world. You have to know how your government works because they're not going to tell you.
No.
They're not going to remind you. They're not going to send you a little email saying, hey, you guys, primaries are coming up in a month. Go take your day off and go vote in your primaries. They don't want you to do that. They've gotten used to you guys being lazy or not knowing what's going on.
And
They're betting on it.
the partisan medias are
Oh yeah. So I don't
because
even know why people even listen to the media anymore. Look, the media has a distinct purpose. It keeps you informed. And that's great. But your media is not working for you. They are working for money. And as soon as media works for money, it's all about what gets clicks and gets watches. So the media is going to do whatever they can to hype the things that make you scared or something that's going to have you doom scrolling because that's
and
what gets the money.
engage you in the direction they want you to engage in.
Correct. If they are biased, which most of them are, they are trying to engage you in the direction you want. They want you to. And what's even worse is it doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, they don't want you voting.
Right.
They just don't.
They don't
They don't care.
they don't want the
Mhm.
people exercising their actual
No.
power.
And this has been happening since the inception of our country. The people who are in power are generally rich, and if they're not rich, they become rich soon thereafter.
Um
And they keep their power, you don't, and they think they know best. Always. They they don't. I mean, we know from lately watching rich people and people in power that they're not any more intelligent than we are. They just think they are. They've been told they are. Really, they act a lot like 3-year-olds who don't get what they want. So, what I want you guys to know is until we get at least above 50% of the people in this country voting, we don't even know what could happen. We don't get those numbers. So until that moment where we try, all of us are fed up, all of us are going to be like, well, let's at least try.
do you
Because a lot,
think we'll hit that critical mass of voter engagement before we get to French Revolution
I don't
level
know.
unrest?
I don't know. And that's what's scary is that we are becoming very jaded. And when people get to the point where they think that nothing's going to work or help, they give up. And when you give up, you're willing to do anything. What a lot of people are trying to get people to do is to stop looking at all the doom because doom does not help you. Humans do not do well in thinking that everything's going to end. We need to stop looking at all the doom. We need to stop like thinking that, oh, well, we've tried this before and it hasn't worked because we haven't. They're trying to tell you that, oh, you've tried it before and it's not going to work. We haven't tried it before. We are self-defeating ourselves. Now, am I guaranteeing it's going to work? No, there are no guarantees because we are working against a lot of power. We do outnumber them, and we can outnumber them in votes or we can outnumber them in bodies. And I'm worried that we're going to choose the bodies. Mostly because I'm getting too old for this. I'm too old to start a revolution. I'll do it, but I'm going to be tired. I don't want to be tired. So what I'm saying is, can we at least try
Engagement.
to use our bodies as engagement instead of as weapons? Right? You're watching the world become aware that we outnumber them. You're watching the world become aware that we don't want this anymore. That awareness hopefully comes with some, well, maybe I'll be spiteful and just vote. I would love you guys to go spite vote.
I mean,
I
spite
know,
voting is still
especially,
voting.
I understand you live in a very Christian state. You're like, what is my vote going to do? So you don't vote. You don't know how many people in that state are in the same boat as you. I know people think that, we are just surrounded by Christians and and Christian nationalists and all of these people that want us dead because we're not Christian. But for one, there are Christians out there that are fed up with those people just as much as we are. And two, there's a lot more people out in the United States that do not believe in a God or in that God. It's a lot more than you think. but because of the world we live in, and because they have taken over the media, they've got us tricked into believing that they outnumber us when they're the minority.
Wait a second. I need to back up and address a sentence there.
Mm-hmm.
They control the media.
Yeah.
Now I don't disagree. But I just want to take a moment and appreciate that that sentence is not currently being used to refer to Jews.
No,
It's nice when
because
that
the
happens.
Jewish people aren't controlling the media.
Nope.
And I don't ever think that they did. That was all a lie
Yes.
of anti-Semitism. No, the Christians, especially of late, since Reagan, have been buying up the media, have been putting their spin on things. And a lot of people who are Christian only listen to their leaders. They're brainwashed by their church.
And this is why we wanted a state and church separation.
Correct. Because it didn't, and if you read some of the founding fathers' works, they fully admitted that that Christianity could become a problem because that there were so many different facets of Christianity that it could be a problem between the different types of Christian sects.
To
right?
the point where Catholics weren't considered the right kind of American for a long, long time.
Well, yeah, because they believed that the Pope could tell people what to do when they would do it.
Right.
Which, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily wrong or not. But what I love is that if you have a bunch of Christian evangelists, they do the same exact thing. They go to their super church, and the guy who's standing up at the pulpit tells them a lie. They believe it
Right.
because he's the mouth of God to them. So look, I'm not saying all Christians, because I know plenty of Christians who are good, kind people. But they have to start fighting against their own problems. The Christian church has too many divisions in it, and all of the divisions that think the other ones are crazy are going to have to fight against them.
Lockpick brings up a good point, says the founding fathers followed deism, so naturally they saw the threat of Christianity.
Well, yeah, because they didn't actually believe that God still existed anymore.
Right. The clockmaker who set the universe
correct.
going.
Yeah, like our founding fathers were during the middle of the Enlightenment. A lot of these guys, God was a secondary thought to their minds. They completely believed that the world was completely run by humans, that humanity was given this world and had to take care of it.
Independent of its creator.
Correct, but the problem, the reason for the separation of church and state is very obvious if you look back historically at Europe.
Divine right
tore itself apart.
Divine right to
tore
rule.
itself apart. Yes, you had kings that they hated that used God as an excuse. You had wars between Protestants and Catholics. You had wars between Protestants and Protestants. You had wars between Catholics and Catholics. It tore apart Europe for hundreds of years. So it's no wonder that people who came over here were like, we're just kind of done with it. We're done.
Right.
We had too many different groups of people from Christianity, from Protestantism coming over here. None of them agreed on anything, but the one thing we agreed on was, you know what, leave them alone. They leave us alone. I don't care.
The
But we,
individualism of America.
yes,
Let each
exactly.
person do their own thing.
Yes. But as long as it doesn't infringe on my beliefs and my rights. But we're getting beyond that, right? We're
Right.
getting to where there's groups of people that are infringing upon other religious rights
By
and beliefs,
saying
and
that,
people who don't have any.
yes, right. By saying it's my right as a God fearing American.
Yeah, essentially by saying, well, I'm allowed to be Christian, so this is what my Christianity means, and it means that I get to be my brother's keeper and I get to tell you all what to do
Right.
because I want you to go to heaven. And I'm just saying, I don't want to go to heaven, leave me alone.
Or my heaven is a
Or I
different
don't,
place than your heaven.
yes, or, whatever. Whatever. And
Right.
that's the thing. That's the thing that we are running into in America. We're running into a lot of things. We're running into and the Christians are just being used.
Yeah.
Take a minute to feel very, very sorry for these poor deluded folks who are being used, who are having their religion used against them by people with money in order to sow this chaos.
So that they
Let's
can
not
maintain power.
so they can maintain power. Let's not forget who the people that are running this show really are. It's not the Christians. They are being used. Okay? It's 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 not even all of our politicians. They're being used. They're being used quite willingly. Let's not quibble over that.
Right.
They're taking the money,
Right.
right?
They know that this is where their bread is buttered, so to speak.
Everybody has read a book. Everybody has watched a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, when we read books and watch movies, know who the bad guy is. We know what's supposed to be the good guy, right? We watch and we read these things, and we've always said things like the person who doesn't want the power is the person who should be in power. You have to remember that the people who go into politics are a lot like, I don't know, pedophiles who become teachers. They go into something that will benefit them. They're going into politics because they are already greedy people, and they know that that's where they can get their money, where they can get their bread buttered. And you have to remember that we don't stop them. And and we might not even know that because they might say all the right things, but what you need to remember is when that reelection comes around, if those people have voted against stuff that you believe in, you cannot vote them back in.
Right.
You have to say no. And I'm going to come back to this, and that starts at a local level because that's where a lot of these people come from. You think that Youngkin is going to stay at a state level? That man
No.
wants to become president.
Yeah.
You think the people who become, state legislatures, that they're not eventually going to become your representatives
You're
at the federal level?
right.
You're deluded.
It's a
They've got a
ladder,
taste
much
for this
like a
at the low.
corporate ladder.
Yes, and they've gotten a taste for it at a local level. You can't let them succeed and keep climbing until they're hardly touchable.
Right. They
You have
have
to
to
pay
be.
attention. And this is not easy, but let me tell you, until TikTok goes away, there are people out there that are making spreadsheets for free to let you track these people. There are websites out there that are things that people do as a passion project so that you know what these people are doing. Why are they out there? Because there are people with time on their hands that are just fed up, just like you. And until revolution becomes the
We are
only,
in ad break. Sorry. Come
Oh, that's
back
okay.
with the until.
Until, yes. I need to go mow my lawn and take a nap. Oh my God.
Yep.
Oh, no, but it's so true. And I don't want to go into my dark place.
I know. I know.
And so many people do. And I understand. I do. Trust me, I sit there and moan and groan all day long about how this is near impossible.
And,
Um,
well, see, and this is sort of that American individualism at play. On an
where
individual
we don't
level, it is near impossible.
it is near impossible, and we need to start learning to be human, which our benefit is to work together. That's what we do best.
It is kind of a human superpower.
It is our superpower. Trust me, without other humans, we would have never got to this point.
We are kind of like ants, giant ants on two legs in that way.
Yeah. I don't know.
Um,
I just,
yeah.
it's easy to say,
We
well,
are,
I just can't. Yep,
we're back.
you're back.
We're
Okay.
back from commercial. So, until
I don't even remember. So we have to do the whole destroy the government, start over. Um, I just want to try, and I want you guys to try, because I don't want people to give in to the temptation of believing you have no power except in violence, because that way is the way that so many people go. And you see the wars and the genocides that it causes,
yes.
where, oh, there's no other way other than killing them and getting them out of our way. I don't want to go that way yet. I think that, and maybe this is very female of me, but I think that we should exhaust all other ways before we go the way of just time to kill them all and salt the earth.
I I don't want to gender uh that kind of thing because I think,
True.
you know,
Yeah.
I
Maybe it's the mom in me.
there
I don't particularly want to be the mom that has to go off to war and send my kids off to war.
that's
I
fair.
think that's
That's
more
fair.
of what it is.
I
The
would hate
Crusades
to
didn't work.
be I'd hate to be the granny who has to see little Z off. You
Yeah.
know, as it is, there's a part of me that's not looking forward to telling him that we may have to defend our property.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think
there
that
may come
if
a
we can
time
stop that,
where I hope we can. I hope we
I
can.
mean, I mean, let's be honest. Humans are actually fairly ingenious creatures. I think and I honestly believe we can do anything that we put our mind to. I just think that um,
Again, it's
there are
collective
people out there.
engagement. We need
Yeah, and that
everybody
there are
to.
people out there that are trying to keep you from thinking that way. I
Mm,
mean, they are. The media is trying to is being paid to make you feel alone.
right.
And I don't want you guys to feel alone. That I want you to guys to go out there and find other people who are the same as you in some ways, where, oh, there's actually a lot of people around me who aren't Christian, and that they're feeling the same way, that it's that we are not alone, that positive thoughts might actually exist out there, and that you can find somebody who will support you. That is what will keep us going, is supporting each other. The government's not going to do it for us. I mean,
Mutual aid.
it's got to be mutual aid. We got to take care of ourselves. And it's happening, right? People are boycotting Kellogg's. People are boycotting the war over in Israel with in Gaza,
The
right?
the students are are protesting.
Yes.
That's something I wanted
And
to touch on.
the teachers are
Oh,
supporting them.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
I want to touch on I am so proud of the UVA professors who put themselves in between the cops and the students. I am
Yeah.
I am beyond proud of those professors. That's the kind of professor that I have been hoping to see again. You
Yeah.
know, the teachers
And
that
it's
I
happening
had in
everywhere.
high school were those kinds of people. The, you know, and I was taught to expect that the professors at universities would behave like that. But
Yeah.
for the past several decades, I have not seen UVA make very good decisions.
Well, and there really hasn't been a lot of protests. I mean, there was the Lives Matter, but those generally went off campus. And
Yeah,
the LGBTQ goes off campus. But this is something distinctly
this is happening
that
right.
on campus. I mean, it's happening let's face it, it's happening everywhere. Starbucks is already complaining that they're not getting enough money because people aren't buying from them. There's lots of people complaining that I mean, our government's complaining in mass about, oh, we're going to stop you guys from deciding not to buy somebody because of their support of some sort of nation. Here's the
You
thing.
can't stop us from doing that.
You can't stop them from doing that. And not only that, you can't support capitalism and free market economy and then say, oh, you don't actually get free market because you actually still have to buy from those places
Right,
even if you don't support them. No, that's how it works.
right,
If you don't like something about somebody, like I don't ever go to Chick-fil-A.
right.
I haven't been to Chick-fil-A in probably 5-6 years because
Even though they have changed their policies,
yes,
I'd
because
still
it's
they're done
yeah,
for me. It was that way at one point.
yeah.
I can't.
And they can't guarantee to me that they've changed their policies either.
Right,
So
right,
here's the thing. When there are kids going on to a school, they're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to that school, and that school is investing in a place that they do not agree with. They have every right to protest that school.
right.
And not only that, these schools set up specific places that they could hold these protests and then still decided, oh, well, because the government doesn't like it, we're going to go send in troops, or I'm sorry, police officers. Yeah,
Now
police officers. We're going to tell
there
them police.
was a wafer thin excuse in Charlottesville of seeing men in black hoodies with black backpacks and face masks that were known to be involved in other violent protests in the past,
I'm sure.
seen wandering around the camps.
I'm sure.
This
Just like, oh, this is all
this
being supported by anti-Semitism. I'm sure that they can make up any excuse that they want.
it
And I'm sure that there might be bad
as somebody
people involved.
who is Jewish by blood, I myself find it highly offensive that people are calling these protests anti-Semitic. I find it offensive that Jews are saying they feel threatened by people protesting Israel. Because Israel is not Judaism. Judaism
No,
is not Israel.
it is a government, it is a state.
We
And
are
just like
allowed to protest Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah.
Israel is not Benjamin Netanyahu and his right wing cabal either. Israel is Israel. Unfortunately, Netanyahu and his right wing cabal have control over what's going on.
Just like Trump did at one point in our
Right.
system, although Netanyahu has been longer.
Yes. And this is, I think, to some degree, a distraction from his criminal trials.
Yeah, I mean, but
Netanyahu was on trial for
yep,
all sorts of criminal behaviors, including taking bribes, corruption.
yep. And just so you guys know, this is part of the reason why our government is set up the way we are. As
Right.
much as it causes chaos, there's a reason a president can't be president for longer than 2 terms. There's a reason why they get 4-year terms, because it forces a certain amount of turnover of ideas.
Right.
You just have to survive those 4 years, and they can't get as much done in those 4 years. Generally, they have to get 2 terms for them to get anything done. So, if you think
But
about,
on a local level, you can set the groundwork up for maintaining a powerful chokehold on the national level
yes,
through
yes.
things like gerrymandering, through things like
If you guys,
zoning,
yeah,
through
what's happening
tax,
is,
through tax rates, land tax rates,
mhm.
these sorts of
And
things.
what's happening is that we have 2 parties, and those 2 parties exist from federal all the way down to state.
Yep.
And those 2 parties work within their parties to get certain things done.
Right.
And we can't disrupt that unless we intentionally do that. Right? Don't vote Republican, don't vote Democrat, vote the people who are going to do what you want them to do.
Right.
Because Democrat and Republican does not mean much anymore. Right? It's too broad. It's part of the problem with the 2-party system. It's like trying to say good and evil. Like that there's all these striations in the middle that everybody has to kind of pick for their party. And
Somewhat agree, somewhat disagree with that. I do think that
how?
there is a very distinct difference.
I mean, there used to be more of a distinct difference.
Well,
but right now
Republicans don't see that everyone has the right to exist.
Oh no.
And
The problem
Democrats,
we're running into right now is that the Republican Party has devolved into less of a party and more of a cabal.
yes,
Okay?
it has.
Because the Republican Party used to mean that you were conservative, you believed in states' rights, you believed in lower taxes, and you believed in a smaller central government. Whereas when you were a Democrat, you believed in a larger central government taking care of people, because
Providing for the
inequality
Commonwealth
yes, for providing for the Commonwealth. Whereas
with larger
your
taxes.
yes, whereas your Republicans believed instead of providing for the Commonwealth, everybody provide for themselves and their family. Now,
It's an
whether you believe
individualism versus
it
collectivism.
is correct,
What it
and
what
that
it
was
used to be was those things.
yes. Now things have gotten because there have been shifts since Trumpism.
Well, and
Um,
before,
well, and before,
the
yeah,
moral we
Trumpism is
can't
just
forget that this started. Well, didn't
yeah,
start
this
with,
started
but the moral majority, that sort of thing was a large, and this goes back to Nixon, all the way
yes,
back to Nixon, where this, the moral majority, the need to stand up for the rights of the Christians, the silent Christians who
Yes.
built the
That have
country.
never been freaking silent as far as I've known for all of my life. But whatever.
Yeah.
This is a culmination of 50 years of trying to get Christians in power. Let's just
Yes.
face it. That's what this is.
Yes. Trying to make this a
And
Christian nation.
yes, Trump is just, they're using him.
Yes. He is a
He's
tool.
obviously not a Christian. He is a tool that they are using to, because he happened to gain popularity.
And he has
That's
been an effective tool for them.
Yes.
He has been a highly effective tool. He did what he set out to do. He changed the makeup of the Supreme Court. He's he's brought the which has in turn overturned Roe versus Wade, is walking back civil rights on all fronts.
So we're going to have to protest again.
I mean,
We're going to have to be loud.
yep,
We're going to have to possibly be violent
yep.
and disruptive. Look, I know that your government has made sure that we teach you all about Martin Luther King and how peaceful he was. Let me tell you, he
He
was
was
not.
not. He was an angry, angry man who had some anger in him. And
Yes.
on many occasions did he worry that he was trying to be too peaceful.
Yes.
Also,
And
Malcolm X had a lot of really good points. Malcolm
yeah.
X made a
Malcolm X let me tell you,
made a lot
the
of
Black
sense.
Panthers were the ones that actually initiated the free food
Right,
programs for
right.
children in school.
And you know
So,
why the
look,
Black Panthers had to arm themselves?
because of the police.
Well, was so that they could keep doing these social
Yes, because
goods.
you couldn't do social goods because the police would come and break you
Right,
up saying it's illegal.
right,
Yeah, so you're not allowed to feed poor people. That's illegal.
right. Also, I'd like to point out, because I jokingly said this to somebody the other day, and they put me in my place, and it was pretty cool. I said to somebody, violence isn't the answer. And he looked at me. He said, yeah, it is. It's the only answer. It's the only thing that's ever gotten anything done. And then he laid all of those points out in front of me that you just laid out.
Here's the thing.
And I was like,
Here's the thing. Violence is a tool, but it is not the only tool in your toolbox, because at some point you have to be able to come to compromises.
right.
The violence is a way to get people to listen.
It's a way
And
to it's a way to bring your opponents back down to your level so you can talk.
And to disrupt them.
Right.
We live in a police state, you guys. we have police officers that are kitted out like they're going to war.
Lockpick says, I gotta say this one real quick. Violence is the best way to get a discount at a flea market.
I mean, okay.
Not wrong.
I mean, yeah.
Depends on the flea market.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be careful. Some of those flea market women would just beat you down. But anyhow.
But if you need a discount on your fleas, then I mean,
that's true. I mean, I'll give you my fleas for free.
So back to arming the police, an armed police state.
I mean, the police are extremely armed nowadays. They're not police officers. They are not there. Our Supreme Court verified that the police was not there to serve you or protect you.
No, the serve and protect is not anywhere in their mandate.
They serve and protect property.
Right.
Not human beings.
Right.
And I know they'll tell you they do. And I know you'll find some nice police officers out there. They're human. they're scared, they're not going to protect you.
Right. Even the good ones. Even the good
Even the
ones
good ones.
are scared for their own existence.
Yes.
Because they
Yes.
are in a system that is against them.
Yes. They are in a system that perpetrates violence,
Yeah.
that encourages violence, that
Yes.
encourages them to be scared of everybody that they're supposed to quote unquote serve and protect.
Yes. And
No police
I'd like
officer
to.
comes out of serving without being like having no good ideas of people.
Right. I'd like to take a moment to offer a resource for people to check out. That Dang Dad over on YouTube, who covers a bunch of this sort of ACAB territory from the perspective of a former police officer.
Yeah.
Really, really good, really thoughtful, very, very engaging, and a voice that makes me melt in ways that are just wonderful. And
We are coming to a point.
to address Lockpick's points, police should logically be better armed than the population. Only if you want to live in a police state. Do the police work for me? If they're my police, if they work for me, then yeah, they should be better armed than everyone, of course. However, if I'm in the position in society that I'm in now, which is borderline criminal because of how different I am from the status quo, then no, they shouldn't. I should be better armed than them. We're in an ad break.
But here's oh,
Sorry.
no, it's okay.
It is, we are trying to walk a fine line here.
This is true.
Everybody on YouTube, remember that we here don't advocate for violence or violent uprising.
No, I've literally been trying to say nobody violently uprise. I'm not old. I'm too old for this stuff.
Right.
And no, I don't believe in that because we're all humans. At the end of the day, everybody needs to remember police officers, people out there that you don't like, they are still human beings and they have the right to exist and have their own thoughts and their own beliefs. They just need to be made aware that you are not going to allow them to override everybody else's health and beliefs, which is what the problem with the police are. There's not a problem with the idea of a police force in theory, but there is a lot of problem when the police force causes pain and suffering in entire communities. You know, when we can't trust them.
When
Why
they
are we
aren't
paying for
held
service
to
we don't
account.
trust? And don't get me wrong, this used to be true of fire departments too, until we got tired of them and we made them the way they are now.
I didn't know
The
that.
police need to go, yes. Fire departments used to be nothing better than a protection racket.
Yeah, if you
Ah.
didn't pay, your house burnt
You
down.
didn't pay, your house burnt down. So we have a history in this country of not liking something and changing it. You know?
There we go.
So, yes, sometimes some violence will crop up and can wind up being beneficial. But we have to remember that the entire purpose of things like protests and violence is not to just cause chaos. It's there for a direction.
The chaos
And we've
isn't
got to
the
keep
end,
that
it is a means to a
correct.
goal.
And unfortunately, a lot of times when we're very angry, it turns into just chaos. And that doesn't help anybody. And ultimately, it actually might help the people with the most power and the most money.
Because in that disorganized chaos, they are able to maintain the systems that have
And we
been
might
put
even
in
get rid of
place.
some of, yeah, we might even get rid of some of their competition that way.
Right.
And then they become more powerful.
Right. Well, friends,
Um,
it has been a fun hour and a half or so, but
so,
Troll Hollow, we do need to let you go and
yes,
mow your lawn.
mow my lawn because it's been raining so much.
Right. And I'm starting to feel that coffee getting ready to tell me it's about time for a bio break. So
Yeah.
I think we're at about the point where we're done, friends. Stick around for the raid. Thank you for hanging out. This has been General Chaos. Another civics lesson.
Okay, you guys have fun.
Thank you, Trilhala,
Thank
very
you.
much for
Bye.
for the education. Thank you,
Thank
Kat, for
you.
being here. Thank you, Master Rasta, Retro, and Lockpick, and Chris into
Bye.
386. Bye. 2 up, 2 down. VA. Double
Bye.
deuces. We're out.